Welcome to the Total Football Podcast. My name is Declan Hare and I'm joined by Andrew Conway.
Hello.
And Matthias O'Flaherty.
Hello.
International football is done and dusted until the new year, but don't fret, it's all action from here until Christmas. Hello everyone, this week we have a special treat for you, a special guest host, Matthias, to give us an alternative view on this weekend's action. So let's jump straight into the news. Tony Pulis was sacked today, Monday. That's the big news of the weekend, I think.
He's gone at last. The owners have seen the light. They came to see West Brom perform, in inverted commas, against Chelsea.
Yeah, it wasn't much of a performance.
No,
I mean, the writing's been on the wall there for a while now. The whole atmosphere around the stadium's been pretty terrible recently.
Like 2 wins in 21 games. It's like absolutely atrocious form.
And he's reinvested into the squad a little bit as well. I can't pronounce his name. The Polish defensive midfielder who's been terrible. Can't even.
Yeah, like he's probably on a lot of wages as well. Like he is on loan, but the wages.
Well, there's loan fees these days. That would probably be the same as the transfer of a lesser player.
Yeah, and like they have Higazi, I think, at the back as well. Like he started the season well. I think he scored in the first match, but other than that, he hasn't really been up to much. Yeah,
but like West Brom, they thought they would be someone like the way Burnley are performing this season or the way Southampton performed in previous seasons. They could kick on a bit with the kind of international signings they've made, but they've completely regressed back to the mean.
Yeah, and
classic Tony Pulis.
Yeah, and that is the kind of question over Tony Pulis now. What does he do next?
He'll get a job somewhere. I'm certain, absolutely certain, he would have taken the Sunderland job probably.
I'd say he could even go for something better than Sunderland. You know, he's got a proven track record with a couple of Premier League clubs now, and Sunderland are in a bit of a free fall. You know, he'll be thereabouts for any club that's sacking a manager between here and Christmas. Really,
could he take the Wales job?
I think he would suit Wales down to the ground. To be quite honest, I think he has the knack for international football.
Would he suit Gareth Bale?
But that's the type of football you need at the international level. Gareth Bale can be the one outsource for them, and they could be solid everywhere else. The problem with international football is you don't have much time with your players. But Tony Pulis will use that time very well because he'll just work on system and shape and let Gareth Bale and the other creative players do their thing, and he won't interfere with it. I think that would work very well. I was thinking that maybe he would go to somewhere like Everton if it wasn't...
It'd be poor timing for him to go to Everton now.
Yeah, because his reputation's not in tatters, but it's in kind of...
It needs a month or two. Like it needs until the Christmas period
if this
for
was
people to kind of forget.
If this was this time last year, or say whatever it was, when they stopped playing, when was that? February, March last year?
Yeah.
And Everton made the change then, he could easily have taken that Everton
job.
Yeah,
because like they were doing really well up until they hit 40 points, and they beat Arsenal, they drew United, and then they just stopped.
Yep. And whatever it is, one win then... Was there no wins between then and the end of the season?
They're winless since the second game of the season. They won their first 2 games of the season.
Which is what kept them going this far.
And like they even beat Burnley, who are in great form now. Like it seems like a bizarre result now that we look back on it.
It was a rock against a brick wall, basically, that match. So that's kind of... It was a fluke that someone won it.
Yeah. That is, on paper, probably the most boring fixture you could think of. But who will West Brom bring in? They have Gary Megson now, like...
Gary Megson, former manager Gary Megson.
He's not a long-term solution to anything.
No. Who's available? I always say Marco Bielsa because it would be fun.
Well, he's at Lille still at the moment.
They're in the relegation zone, but
I mean, Bielsa coming into a defensive team like West Brom would be...
Yeah, it's like the opposite of what Bielsa...
What could Bielsa do with James McLean? That's all I want to say.
Yeah, that would actually be something special.
You play him as like a goalkeeper. Just he's got strong, he's got heart. He can play long balls.
Yeah, you know, he never gives up. Yeah. Well, Alan Pardew and Nigel Pearson have been the links today.
I mean...
Yeah, neither of them are confidence-inspiring.
Speaking of managers whose reputations are in tatters a bit.
Yeah.
Gordon
Strachan's available.
Yeah.
It's another...
Mackay seems to be getting a lot
Malky Mackay. Yeah. I don't think Malky Mackay will get an easy return. I think Scotland's the way through. I know he's caretaker boss at the moment.
I wonder, would Michael O'Neill be...
No.
I think that West Brom would be doing fairly well if they did get him.
They would,
yeah.
I don't think he'd go, though. Like
the money, they could throw a lot of money at him.
Yeah, it seems like he is destined for Scotland, though.
Yeah.
I think the international football suits him, and it's improving his reputation all the time doing it.
Yeah, like if he could get Scotland to the Euros, even just in the next qualifying campaign, that'd be huge for them. Like,
because you'll see now the managers they're transferring from international football to club football. Like Chris Coleman,
Yeah.
he's gone to Sunderland. His reputation's probably was at its peak on Wales. It's not going to climb much further.
Like, he never really did much for Fulham when he was
He kept
there.
them going.
Like,
he kept them going on a limited budget.
But, like, they did better once he left.
They not
They got to
initially.
a Europa League final.
Yeah, but that was
eventually.
after a fair bit of change at the club, and it kind of went through a lot of it was 3 or 4 years later by the time they went to
The Michael Jackson statue was really the change they needed.
Well, that's Chris Coleman to live through that ownership, so that's probably a badge of honour for him. But I don't know, like, I would imagine just from their ownership and the way that they've in the past, West Brom have thought very internationally.
Pepe
They haven't,
Mel?
yeah, but Pepe Mel, they haven't always approached a decision of appointing a manager the way you might think they would. They haven't always gone to a Tony Pulis. They haven't always gone to that type of manager. They went to Pepe Mel. They went to the name of the manager who used to be the assistant under Mourinho at Chelsea.
Clark.
Steve
Clark, yeah.
And he did excellently for them for a while.
Yeah,
and
he
then
had
their
them in the
first few
Champions
months.
League places. at
Exactly,
Christmas.
and then they replaced him with his assistant, who also was a highly respected coach and very progressive, who didn't go as well, and that's what eventually led to Tony Pulis being appointed.
Yeah.
You know, these things go around and around, and
With Tony Pulis, though, the club's taken on a more British approach. Is that the right way of saying it? You know, they haven't been recruiting foreign players as much. There's a much more
they've been recruiting older players.
older
as well.
players.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just going for a much more direct style of football.
Yeah.
Which, you know, if you're bringing in a European manager, I could see it going fairly like Frank de Boer at Crystal Palace. You know,
Yeah, that's a
just
good point.
too big a system change in one go.
Already in the middle of the season as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, maybe Pardew is someone they need to bring in just for the
Yeah.
They,
rest
yeah,
of the
they could
season.
bring in someone for that and then say this is it until the
Because,
end
like,
of the
David
season.
Moyes got a 6-month contract,
Exactly.
so, like, that
Yeah.
could be the style.
There's precedent
now.
there.
Yeah.
David Moyes probably wished he got the West Brom job. That
Yeah.
probably suited him a bit more.
Like, there's already fan turmoil at West Ham as well.
I mean, they're not too happy at West Brom either.
No, they're not at all. But at least I think the ownership and the fans are on the same page at West Brom.
Yeah.
That they both want
Yeah.
to peel this out. They both want the best for the club.
And, like, they came to this decision quickly enough, I think. Like, this could have gone on longer. If it was West Ham, Tony Pulis would still be in a job.
I think there's a lot of arguments, say, when you have Stephen Gerrard or you have other pundits of that ilk saying that, why would you sack Tony Pulis? He keeps you up.
Yeah,
But-
be careful what you wish for
Yeah,
is what people
yeah.
are saying. I think that's kind of a lousy argument.
But at the same time, anyone who's in favour of that argument, they have given him, like, this was bad in May.
The thing is,
They've given him time.
Yeah.
Tony Pulis's teams always do drop off once they reach safety. I don't know, is that down to him or down to the mentality of the clubs he manages, but there is always a sort of noticeable drop off once he hits 40, 42 points. So this is the first season that he hasn't rebounded back at the beginning of the season, and the results have continued to be poor over the summer. So,
But there is a thing that says that, you know, managers have a sell-by date almost. They have a useful life where they're at the top of their game. So Tony Pulis has been doing it for 10 years almost in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And maybe this is the tail end of his kind of usefulness, that the game has moved on a certain amount. And now he's
It
on
might
the
be a
downward
bit
trend.
early to say that just yet, because, like, they did do really well last year up until February.
Well, they still finished 10th, did they?
They finished 11th, I think, in the end.
Something, you know, they're still
Like, that's still a
comfortable.
good finish for
Comfortable.
West Brom, yeah. And, like, it was the quickest they had reached 40 points in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And you have to remember where West Brom were before Tony Pulis came in.
They're in the relegation zone. when
Like,
he
they
came in.
were such a yo-yo club, and he's brought a stability there.
But I think it's not just him that should get the credit for that. I
Yeah.
think it's the ownership and the
Roy
steady.
Hodgson was very crucial in that.
Roy Hodgson, Steve Clark, and like they had good managers over a sustained period of time that eventually kept them in the Premier League. They had good planning when they were out of the Premier League
Yeah.
as well. They didn't overspend, and that's why West Brom are the only Birmingham club left in the top flight.
yeah.
Yeah. Going towards maybe the top of the table, there was comfortable victories for Man City, Man United, Chelsea, Liverpool, even Arsenal to a lesser extent. Like, at least Man United, I suppose the only news there is that Man United have their big players back, Latan's back.
They're back to winning 4-1, which was their trademark at the beginning of the season.
It was their best performance in a long time. Like,
Yeah, but it was also Newcastle were a bit weird. It's like they couldn't believe that they got ahead when they got ahead.
Yeah, because that's the first goal. I couldn't believe this when I saw the statistic. It's the first goal from open play that United have conceded at Old Trafford this calendar year.
That's good.
Really?
Yeah, that's a
damnation of their set piece defending.
Yeah, like that's a ridiculous statistic. Really, and fair play to Dwight Gale. Like it was good
Dwight
finish.
Gale never scores.
Yeah.
In the Premier League, anyway, there was 4 players waiting till like any of 4
Oh
players
yeah,
could have scored
definitely.
that
Like
goal.
Lindelof fell over, but also like where was the rest of the defenders?
Yeah. It was a bad. It's happened already a couple of times in Man United matches. I remember it happened to Juan Mata. I forget which match it was in, but Juan Mata did the same thing. It just kind of fell over, and then there was a huge hole in the whole Man United defence, and players could just stream through it.
Yeah, I remember that as well. Like he was hugely. I think that was the Huddersfield match.
Yeah, that was the Huddersfield match, the first goal.
Yeah,
and that was the kind of problem. Then is that Man United seem to be very shaky when they're in possession. Defensively, it's like a counterintuitive thing. You think they'd be most solid when you'd have 2 banks of the defence and the midfield.
Playing Chris Smalling at the back doesn't really help.
You always have a thing against Chris Smalling.
He just can't use his feet. Like he's a good defender in the right system. Like he was very good under Van Gaal, but since Mourinho's come in and the system's kind of changed, he's not adapted to it well.
Yeah, when's Eric by?
He's constantly just injured after these international breaks. It's strange because he is the best defender at United.
Yeah, clearly most physical. Like
Rojo's back now, so like that's interesting as well. Like Man United are back to full health now, it seems.
Yeah, except for Baye,
yeah. So like they have Arsenal and Man City coming up. Like it'll be interesting to see how they perform with everyone back.
The thing is, would they even need everybody back? I mean, when they go in against the big teams, it doesn't seem to matter who they have playing and who they don't, because the game plan's set out, you know, whereas
it helps to have Pogba in the team, but
I'd agree, but Pogba's much more crucial against the Newcastles and the Huddersfields than he is against...
he was fantastic against Newcastle.
He was,
absolutely. He really
absolutely.
showed like why United had struggled to create chances against smaller teams while he was gone.
Yeah, I think they'd probably still be keeping up with City if he hadn't been out.
Yeah, like you'd think that he'd have brought a calmness to the midfield against someone like Huddersfield.
Yeah, I partially agree with you there. Like Pogba does add a lot to the team. He does the running of 2 players, which is why Mata was able to be kind of allowed to play in the team, because he's doing Mata's defensive cover as well. But I don't think Man United would be any better off than they are at the moment if he was playing in those the matches that he missed, because they've beaten the teams they've been expected to beat, and they have not won the matches against the bigger teams. And
it's just that Huddersfield match, really.
Yeah, which can happen. That always happens.
Yeah.
But there is a gap, like the match against... Well, they won Spurs, so we can rule that one out.
It's the Chelsea match.
Chelsea match and...
Liverpool draw.
The Liverpool draw, where they weren't... Like, I don't think Pogba would have made much of a difference in those matches.
Yeah, I could see that as well. Like, maybe they could have got something from the Liverpool, like more from the Liverpool match with Pogba in the team, anything. But yeah.
I suppose it comes down to whether you think Mourinho would have gone for a more expansive game plan had he had Pogba available.
It's just not likely that he would have.
No.
Like, the thing is, against Chelsea, they did open up. Like, it seemed like they did want to attack in that match, and obviously Pogba would have helped there. But they still just lacked cohesion defensively that you think Chelsea would have broken through at some point anyway.
See, the big thing I think Pogba could give him in the big games is the option of playing more expansively, because especially against the likes of Chelsea or City, who have incredible midfields, you know, you want to have some sort of control in the game, and Pogba does give you that, you know, because if you don't have that, you kind of have to sit back and just defend against them. You can't, if you open it up without any sort of midfield control, especially City with the likes of Kevin De Bruyne and David Silva, they're going to hurt you, you know?
Yeah, but it's a testament against Mourinho that without Pogba, without one player, with the amount of money they spent, that there's just no midfield essentially. Like he is the burden there of he is the creative outlet.
They do have creative players, it's just they don't utilise them in the way. Like Mata could be that creative player.
Mkhitaryan as well, but the ball just flies over the head when Pogba's not there.
Like Ibrahimovic could play in midfield as well.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, but like the problem with United, like I honestly think I understand what you're saying about, we'll see it in the next couple of weeks when they play Arsenal and Man City, when they play them, and see how Man United actually set up against them. But I think with Pogba fit, I think he will still approach those matches with the same team sheet and the same strategy. As in, he will go with Matic, Herrera, and another kind of passy midfielder in the centre of midfield, and then instead of Mkhitaryan, Pogba will probably be that outlet.
Yeah, and Fellaini will be there as well.
Exactly. They'll have a kind of mix round of these things, whether they use Fellaini as an impact sub, which that's kind of his role now.
Yeah. It's
like, and again, with all this, Pogba's back and Zlatan's back, he sent sent Fellaini up, and if you remember for the chance that was discussed that Zlatan had a flying volley type of thing kind of saved. It was a bit tame and he didn't really connect with it properly. But the player that took 3 defenders out so Zlatan had the space was Marouane Fellaini, who just kind of ran into them. And in Europe probably would have been a free out.
The thing about that though is like by that time like United were already 3-1 or 4-1 up.
Yeah, they were 4-1.
Like Pogba for the first goal in particular was like absolutely fantastic the way he created that chance. And it was interesting to see Mourinho actually play Lukaku, Rashford and Martial up front for the first time.
Against a wonky defence like Newcastle.
Yeah, but like he should have done that earlier in the season. Like it just made so much sense to play them. Like Mkhitaryan's in such poor form up to now. It's a wonder he didn't do it like weeks ago.
They're not defensively solid with those players up front. That's just how it is. They don't track back. They don't press.
No, but I remember against Southampton, like Rashford was playing left back. Like they do get back.
Yeah, but it's not to the Mourinho standard.
Yeah,
like Mkhitaryan can be like it completely ruins his creative outlet, but he can be crafted into a player that kind of stands and like makes very bad tackles.
He was a scapegoat during United's poor form as well. Like a lot of fans tore into him at that point. Yeah. Like harshly as well. Like there's nothing he could really do. Nope. Like Mourinho's playing a system that doesn't suit him at all.
Yeah, he can only be the player he is, and he can only play in the position he's playing in. And that's how it is.
Mourinho also has the tendency to keep playing players who are out of form, regardless, because that's the way he feels they get back into form. You know, so when Mkhitaryan's playing badly, he's not going to take him off. And I feel with the creative depth he has at United, with Rashford and Martial and Mata and all the other options, Lingard even, he probably should rotate a bit more, but like he feels that doing that saps the confidence of the player. Yeah.
What about Luke Shaw?
Yeah,
poor Luke Shaw, who's still in Mourinho's plans apparently, even though
I don't see that.
I can't see that happening.
There's the worry as well. Mourinho's very worried that Fellaini might go on a free transfer as well. We'll see that.
He's giving him hopes.
In January, we'll be able to see if he negotiates with anyone. There's rumours that he could go to Turkey.
There's a lot of money going around in Turkish sport at the moment. If I was Fellaini, he's coming up in 30.
If he can get a payday.
If Man United aren't going to give it, but Premier League clubs still pay the most. Manchester United is still a massive club, so if they offer him a new contract, they'll probably offer him more.
It'll be interesting to see in January. We probably will see maybe. Same with the likes of Sanchez and Ozil. We'll see movement there. There are a lot of players whose contracts are running down. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. But the big match that came out of the weekend was Arsenal-Tottenham, and Arsenal were just... It was their best performance of the season, without a shadow of a doubt. They were so oddly comfortable.
Yeah, they just kind of bypassed Spurs' press. It was a very clever... You don't see it often, what they do, what Arsenal did against Spurs is... In other matches this season, Spurs have played really high lines for pressure. So they have the midfield and their attackers on, like Harry Kane is on the first defender with the ball once it gets past from the goalkeeper. But Arsenal seem to have, they played a team that of all passers. They had Aaron Ramsey and Granit Xhaka in central defence or central midfield. They had Koscielny, who's a good passer to the ball, Mustafi's a good passer to the ball, and Monreal, who's a good passer to the ball at the back. And they all just passed the ball around confidently. There was no hoofing, there was no worry. Now, any of that could have been pounced upon by Spurs, but they weren't really on it. So they didn't. And then as a result of that, Spurs were just, their press wasn't working and they didn't know what to do, and there was space opening up because everyone's pressing forward. And then Arsenal kept funneling through the middle. And if it weren't for some bad finishing and a couple of good saves from Hugo Lloris,
could have had a few.
There could have been 4 or 5-0 probably.
Yeah, and Spurs just look so tired as well. Harry Kane didn't play during the international break, but he looked wrecked by the time he was dragged off.
His leg was heavily strapped during the match. He probably shouldn't have played that match, and we'll see whether it'll affect them. He probably won't play in the Champions League. I can't see him really.
Yeah, I don't see that either.
So we'll see how it goes for him, but it shows that despite Spurs being bigged up, and I know we're going to talk about it later in the show, they aren't the team that we're led to believe. They're not.
No, they have their moments, but they're not there yet.
Yeah, exactly. They don't have strength and depth to cope with a knock to Harry Kane or Dele Alli not being in form or whoever else isn't pulling the strings at Spurs.
Yeah, Harry Kane's a fantastic player, so he is hard to have a replacement for on the bench. Llorente is just not that kind of player.
No, they brought him on, and did he even... I don't know if he even got much of a touch.
Anthony did.
The last 25 minutes or so he was on.
And Dele Alli's been really poor this season. It just looks like he needs a break. Like I think he played all 180 minutes of the international break. Like he's the exact kind of player that needed those 2 weeks.
And he's
off.
not in form either, so it's
No.
not helping him get any better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. He obviously last year he was absolutely fantastic, one of the best players in the league. But maybe it came a bit too early for him, because he's England's new wonder kid. It's
Yeah, there is a lot
Deja
of
vu.
hype around him as well.
Yeah.
Like,
To
that
get a
never
pay
had-
rise though. Spurs have a very strict wage
Yeah.
structure, so maybe he's like he sees that, like looking across London at Arsenal who are
Because
behind
that
in the
seems to be
league.
the case with Danny Rose. It looks like he's going to be out the door and possibly even as soon as January.
Yeah,
I mean,
Both United and City are apparently after him.
yeah. With the comments he had, wasn't it back in summer, but just before the injury,
No,
or was it during his
it
injury?
was just before the season started.
Yeah, but he was going on about how it's ridiculous that he's not being paid the same. And I mean, I can see his point, but you can't come out and say that in the paper.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, you wonder what the state of the relationship is if you go to that point, because he has advisors, he's business advisors, he's agents that. If he doesn't know from common sense, they'll tell him, no, you can't do this. They're setting up these interviews where he says these things. There's nothing that isn't done that's calculated.
that's a very good point.
But he's been out of the side as well. Like, he is back from injury, but he's not being played. Davies is playing at left back and left wing back when called upon.
Which is a stark contrast to last season when Spurs had fewer games and they were rotating their fullbacks every
They
match.
rotated in nearly every match. Yeah.
So there's something afoot at Spurs.
Yeah, and there was just something odd I noticed on Saturday. Like, there was a lot of space between either wing back and the third defender, or the defender on that side. Like, Bayern did a lot of running in behind from passes. Like, Ramsey was laid off a few passes for Bayern. It was just poor crossing for Bayern that meant that they didn't capitalise on it.
Yeah, it was as if Arsenal had an extra 2 players in midfield almost.
Yeah.
That's the biggest weakness with the system like that. It happens to Chelsea too. Normally, if they lose, it's because the space behind the wing backs gets exploited, and it takes like really athletic wing backs to do the system because they need to be back and up and back and up and back and up. But even then, when you're playing against a team like Arsenal who are so good at moving the ball, that mightn't always be enough.
Yeah, and like Mesut Ozil had one of his best performances in an Arsenal jersey as well. Like, I think he ran 12 kilometres.
I think he
throughout the
made
match.
4 successful tackles, which
Yeah,
is
like,
pretty good for
there
Mesut
was-
Ozil.
I think it was at the start of the second half. Like, he just completely bullied Dele Alli off the ball, and like you would think that Dele Alli would be like he would hold his own on the ball, but like Ozil just ran right through him. I think it was called for a foul, but like.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it was
It's
still,
Mesut Ozil.
He got completely out-muscled by Ozil. Like the way Ozil is treated in the press, like it's always like, oh, he's such a meek player, like luxury player. You can't play anything against the big sides. But like this is probably his best performance against a big side that we've seen in Arsenal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like he tore apart Tottenham.
Yeah, they were excellent the day, but there's a thing to be said, and I saw it in a lot of reaction of the match, that is this Arsenal's cup final? I know the Independent went with that line that did Arsenal just raise their game to play Spurs this one time, and now you'll see the real Arsenal next few weeks.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see can they like repeat this performance against Man United. I think that's the next big team they're playing.
Well, before the international break, they played Man City, and they played quite well against Man City.
Yeah,
playing a
they were
different system.
One of the better
like,
teams to come up against Man City.
They were unfortunate. They lost 3-1. They had chances to equalise.
The offside.
They were unfortunate with a couple of decisions in the match they were unhappy with, but they were beaten by the better side. But that was a good performance, and then this was another good performance again, and they're back-to-back big teams. So
yeah,
maybe it isn't their cup final,
because they did have their performance against Chelsea last season, the 3-0 or the 3-0 against United the season before that. Like, they have these one-off performances in them, but they've just never been able to do it consistently.
I'd feel that Arsenal this year have been going quite well, almost under the radar, really, because they didn't start it off too well. Was it in the first 5-6 games they dropped most of their points?
Yeah, like they lost to Stoke in the second game
Yeah.
of the season. They just got through the line against Leicester on the opening day.
Yeah, and like they've kind of bounced back from that again now, and they're looking good, really. They're only 2 points behind Chelsea, 4 behind United.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're no worse than those teams, really, on the basis of it this season.
Yeah,
And then,
they did actually play well at Stamford Bridge as well.
yeah, exactly. They have been consistently quite good, even when losing. And, the teams they've lost to, City, Chelsea,
Watford as well.
Wat-
They had that.
they-
That was
yeah.
kind of a strange
they
match
have
as well.
They have their exceptions, all right. but I don't think that they're nearly as inconsistent as they're, made out to be.
And they were all away performances as well. Like, they've won their 11th league match at the Emirates in a row, which is a record at the Emirates, I think. Like, their home record has been very good this season. They won every match this season,
which it wasn't last season.
Yeah,
they lost a lot of home matches last season.
So, like, if they can keep that, like, if they keep that kind of record up throughout the season, like, just build on that away form. Be kind of like Burnley last season, just,
win all the games at home,
yeah,
and then try to survive away from home.
Yeah. Moving away from the Premier League, there's in La Liga, there was the Madrid derby that we spoke about last week. It didn't really live up to expectations. The winner of that match was Barcelona in the end, really. It's now a 10-point gap between Barcelona and the two Madrid sides. They finished 0-0. Is the title race over in La Liga?
Valencia are still there. They're 4 points adrift to Barcelona. Simone Zaza.
They play next week, so
the title decider. Valencia against Barcelona. No, it's still too early to say it's over. If this comes to the Clásico December 23rd or whenever it's on, and there's still 10 points between them, and Barcelona win, then you might have to revisit the situation and say probably it is over at that point, because teams in Spain don't drop. The top teams in Spain don't drop that many points. They tend to, like, a 10-point turnaround from the new year. It's probably impossible. It'd take probably the biggest collapse of the last 20 years in Spain for something like that to happen.
Yeah, like a 10-point deficit has never been turned around in La Liga.
Yeah, so it's unlikely to change the moment. But that match was a good match. The Madrid derby at the Bernabeu. Like, Atletico wanted to kick the hell out of Real Madrid.
The two teams do absolutely hate each other at this point. Like, they've met so often.
Did you see, it was a free kick to Real Madrid. Benzema got fouled and he hit the deck. And I forget, it was the left midfielder for Atletico just volleyed the ball from about 5 yards into Benzema's head.
I saw that.
And Marcelo nearly lost his life trying to stand up for the giant Frenchman who's twice his size. Just like wanting to fight them. It was wonderful. The ball went out at the stadium. He hit him so hard.
But, like, what's going on with Ronaldo? He's only got 1 goal this season. He's out of 55 shots. Like, he scored fewer goals than Paulinho, who was ridiculed going into the season.
Paulinho has 4 goals now in La Liga.
Yeah. I think he's outscored the BBC. I think that was the stat I saw. He scored more than Benzema, Bale and Cristiano. Like, that's not good for Real. Like, they hang their hat on the BBC. Like there's been cracks papered over by Asensio and players of his ilk that have actually contributed more goals than would be traditional for a Ronaldo-focused side. But yeah, Ronaldo's not playing well. I think he scored a few in the Champions League. He got some against Apoel and Dortmund, I think.
Did he not score against?
Oh, he got a penalty against Tottenham.
Yeah, so there is goals there. But he's just, I don't know what it is about Spain. Maybe they finally figured him out in Spain after letting him score 300 odd goals against them.
But is there just kind of an apathy? Like Sir Alex Ferguson always said that retaining the title was harder than winning it back. Like, is there a sense of that in this Madrid side?
It's a little tough to say that about a side that won the first back-to-back Champions League since.
But have they just reached that point where, like, they've won it and they're just kind of bored?
I wouldn't say that that's the problem. I do think that the Ronaldo focus at the club has probably hurt them a little more than they thought it would, because they have a lot of good young players. They have Isco's coming through; he's playing really well. They have Asensio. They have Vasquez, but like they're still playing Benzema up front, and they had Morata. And out of the two, Morata is definitely the better pick for the future. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They've kept Benzema, and that's mostly because of his chemistry with Ronaldo. You know, he's not
like, that's very short-term thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
Ronaldo's 32 now.
34.
34.
34.
I didn't think he was that old.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like he wants to get 7 Ballon d'Ors. He's on 5. Like,
he's not going to get. If he continues, there's no way they can kind of shoehorn him another one.
Yeah, like unless he drags Portugal to a World Cup.
Which I think is beyond him at this point.
Yeah.
But, like, I know what you're saying about Ronaldo. The team is too focused on Ronaldo and has been too focused on Ronaldo. So when he is missing like he was for the suspension at the beginning of the season, they suffered. They weren't able to, really adjust. And then when he came back, he took a few games to get back in form. And then there was breakages with the international breaks. And, things like that kind of happened, and then he was out again and he couldn't score, and various things happened. It's kind of been a very stop-start season for them. But I think more so than, you see, the team, what you're saying about, are they just gone stale or something like that? Possibly, although Madrid actively tried to avoid this during the summer. They went and bought young players. I know they got rid of Morata, which is probably an error, but they wanted to keep Ronaldo happy. You keep Ronaldo happy by keeping him scoring goals, and that's what Benzema's helped him do for so many years. So if it's not the young players coming through that are trying to refresh the whole side, you have to look elsewhere. The players are still top quality. They're still performing for their nations. They're still performing elsewhere. So then the look then goes to Zidane, who was always looked at as a caretaker manager at the club, even though he's now won 2 Champions Leagues and a league title. And you look at how teams are now outwitting Real Madrid, where previously everyone was in such high form that the players just, they often say about Man City that anyone can manage Man City to at least a top 4 finish because they have so much money. Well, most managers could probably manage Real Madrid to a high La Liga finish and far in the Champions League. And maybe Zidane's personality and the fact that he is Zinedine Zidane pushed them over that extra ledge to make them win the tournaments. And now maybe it's been found out that, okay, we've won 2 Champions Leagues, we've won the league. You're Zidane, but now look at us. We've won as many Champions Leagues. We've won more Champions Leagues than you ever won. So maybe it's like we're better now and we need more tuition or we need more tactics or strategy than he's providing.
But the club is obviously famous for the amount of egos they have there. And with the big personalities in the dressing room, the Ronaldos, the Bales, if Zidane can't keep them in line, he's won Champions Leagues as a player, he's won them as a manager, he's one of the best footballers ever. If he doesn't have the respect of the players and can't keep them in line, maybe that's going a bit far. But if he can't tactically manage them, at least he can keep them in line. So far, there isn't.
I don't think they've misbehaved or I don't think anyone would speak out against Zidane. No, I agree with you. I don't think anyone could keep. If he can't keep them all, up motivated and stuff like that, I don't think any manager could. But maybe it's the other side of it. We saw when that Barcelona club that I've forgotten the name of, even though a few weeks ago they beat Real Madrid. Do you remember the name of that Barcelona club?
Espanyol?
No, the other one that beat
Deportivo?
No, I forget the name of them, but they beat Real Madrid like 4 weeks ago, and I've already forgotten their name.
I know they lost to Real Betis.
Yeah, but that's a very good it's a very good piece of information to understand when we're trying to talk about them. The manager came out after they won and they said we watched them play, we figured out that they don't like playing against high tempo, high pressure, attacking them through the middle, and they were not able to cope. And even though they have better players, they weren't systematically. It's a team game. It's not an individual game, and that's kind of where they're suffering.
Right.
So how much longer will Zidane be Real Madrid manager?
If they lose the Clásico and it's still 10 points to 13 points at that point, I don't see him surviving after Christmas.
Well, who do you bring in after Zidane?
They'll get someone else. Rafa Benitez. They could bring him back. It's Real Madrid. They'll get anybody. They've sacked bigger managers than Zidane. No offense to Zidane, but they've sacked bigger managers than Zidane.
Would they go for Pochettino?
No. Maybe in the long term. I think for the rest of the season, Pochettino would be too expensive. I think they could bring in.
Yeah.
I know Pochettino's Argentinian and he's lived a lot of his life in Spain, but there is an urge in Spain to keep the kind of management at the top Spanish, especially in the current political climate. I think the next appointee will be a Spaniard.
I would feel if Zidane goes anytime soon, it's going to be a very poisoned chalice because, especially Ronaldo, I don't want to say he's in decline because obviously
he could bounce back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you do have the problem that, the next medium-term manager, the next guy who's there for 2-3 years, he's going to have to phase out Ronaldo.
Yeah.
And you need somebody who can handle an ego.
Yeah.
The ego, If Zidane's there, he's probably the best sort of candidate for it. But, who else can come in and do that? Who else can come in and tell Ronaldo you're dropped?
Jose Mourinho?
Yeah.
I don't think he'll be going back. No, when it comes to getting rid of Ronaldo, I think they're praying that he either gets injured, requests transfer to another club, i.e. Paris or someone like that, or they find this golden manager who's able to actually control Ronaldo, reappoint Sir Alex Ferguson or something like that. I don't see any manager in current world football that could, maybe Pep Guardiola or someone like that who has clearly said multiple times that Ronaldo is nothing against Messi, and I don't think he's Ronaldo's biggest fan. So maybe someone like him, but it's yet to be seen.
That will do us for part one. Join us after part two. We will discuss Pochettino and Spurs' inability in the big games. Over the weekend, Gary Lineker tweeted a stat of the 17 away matches Pochettino has managed against the big top six clubs. Spurs have only managed a single victory. Are Spurs overrated? They can't seem to do it against the big clubs. Their players are constantly praised, their mistakes often overlooked. Why?
Is it too easy to say because some of them are English, and it's a wonderful story to see a bunch of young English players being all brought together, being brought through. They're all on a structured wage package, so they're not overpaid the way that Man City or Man United or Arsenal or Liverpool players are. Is it like something that you want to see? Oh, I want them to do well. We want them to do well. Pochettino plays football right. He plays a kind of attacking football. He plays something different. And, Spurs are an old club that a lot of people liked because they're always losers. And now he can make them into winners. Is that too easy to say, or is it?
Probably, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I think some of what you said is definitely correct, but I think it's just Pochettino is still young in his management career as well. He's still learning. He's only in his second year in the Champions League, where they have won big matches. They got a draw on the Bernabeu. That's a really impressive result, despite what we were just saying about Real Madrid.
Maybe it isn't, because maybe Real Madrid are on that decline. They have reached their peak last May, and now they're on their way down.
I'd agree definitely with some of the English bias, but I'd also say that Spurs aren't the team that they're made out to be. Pochettino's obviously done a wonderful job there. First, they're far better than they were 10 years ago. They're genuinely top.
Even 5 years ago.
Even 5 years ago, yeah.
Poor Harry Redknapp.
Yeah, no, but they're genuinely top six now. The thing is, because they were the only team in the race with Leicester when the year Leicester won it. They're the only team who kept up with Chelsea when Chelsea won it. They're kind of seen as title contenders at this point. Whereas I don't think that they're title contenders in the same way that City, United and Chelsea might be. I think they're more on the level of an Arsenal right now. You'd look at them, they're going to do well. They're going to be one of the better teams in the league. But you don't really expect them to challenge for the title.
Yeah, Hugo Lloris agrees with you. He had a quote there after the Arsenal match saying that he forget about the talk about catching Chelsea. Our main goal for the season is the top four. I don't know if that's an admission of
that makes sense though for Tottenham. They can't also they're jumping a step there. You need to solidify yourself as a Champions League team before you can actually win the Premier League.
Leicester didn't.
Well, Leicester is an incredible exception that we will never see.
And Man City didn't either when they won the Premier League.
But Man City are spending so much more than Tottenham are able to.
Yeah.
And I would say that should be a note of concern for Tottenham, because they don't want to miss their chance. They've got the best team probably one of the best teams they've ever had.
Yeah.
They have a lot of really good, young, talented players, but they're not paying them nearly as much as they get anywhere else. They're building a new stadium, which is taking up a large amount of what they brought in, by getting into the Champions League, by increasing their status. And I know Harry Kane especially has come right out and said, I don't want to leave Tottenham, I'll stay with Tottenham.
He even had a quote about that this weekend.
Yeah, but that mightn't be true for Christian Eriksen. That mightn't be true for Dele Alli. That mightn't be true for Alderweireld.
We're already seeing it with Danny Rose, as mentioned.
Yep, exactly.
Kyle Walker already went.
Yeah. And I could see Spurs' most promising team falling apart around,
They missed their opportunity already.
It's kind of like a Monaco or a Dortmund in that way.
Yeah.
That Monaco team had, it wasn't as slow a build up. It was very sudden. It seemed that Monaco were all of a sudden winning Liga and getting in the Champions League semi-final, and similar to Dortmund back when they were winning under Klopp. But now, it's just because it's such a slow build towards the title, and they're not actually getting there. It just seems like it's going to be such a harsher decline. All those Monaco players were sold last summer. That Dortmund team that got to the Champions League final has been picked apart over the years.
It's inevitable that Spurs will be... They don't have the economic capacity to keep up with a Real Madrid, a Barcelona, and Man United. They just don't. That it's a reality that at least one of these players is going to be sold. in the next of the next 2 windows. Probably one of them is going to be sold. And you can say what you want about Harry Kane. If he is sold from above, he has no choice to stay at Spurs. Like if Real Madrid come, and I don't think they will, but if they do come and it's like offer £200 million,
even like Ed Woodward at Man United, like they could come knocking on the door very easily. Like it's the exact kind of purchase that Ed Woodward would love at the club.
Yeah, big name, no explanation.
He's English.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but Harry Kane he seems to be a very nice fella. He is marketable. He's a perfect purchase for a large team. No matter where you go, like if an Italian club could afford him, if a Spanish club could afford him, he'll bring in new revenue, new streams. He speaks English. He can speak to the American audience and can speak to the English audience and stuff like that. He'd be a great purchase for any of these big teams. I don't see him winning much at Spurs, if anything.
Yeah, like
That's you asked earlier, did they miss their chance? We were talking about Dortmund and Monaco. They both won the league.
Yeah.
You know, Tottenham didn't, and really, the year Leicester won the title, that was their chance.
Yeah.
That was every other big team. Chelsea imploded. City and United weren't at the races. Arsenal
were actually just kind of the same.
Arsenal were
finished
the same.
second.
Yeah. But like even since then, Arsenal have won the FA Cup.
Yeah.
You know, what have Tottenham won? They have won nothing.
They're not even trying to win the League Cup. And
no,
stuff like
they're
this.
not. And I mean, I can understand, okay, the FA Cup is the third most prestigious competition they're involved in. But look at last year. They were in the semi-final with City, Chelsea and Arsenal. The league was gone for them at that point.
Yeah.
Surely you'd prioritise that, and even, all right, it's only the FA Cup. But, like, the teams you'd have to beat, showing that you could go out there and beat City and then Chelsea... Or beating Chelsea first. It was Chelsea in the semi-final, and then City or Arsenal.
They were really poor in that final.
They were. They didn't seem to want it, and I can't understand why you wouldn't. Like that would be the first piece of silverware since 2007.
Yeah,
was the Carling Cup
they
back
won
then?
the
They haven't won
Cup
the FA
one
Cup
day
since
around.
1991.
Yeah, they haven't won the league since the 70s.
It's 1961 when they won the double.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I know the FA Cup doesn't seem like as much of a big deal now, but it's something. It shows that the process is working.
Like it's big enough for Arsenal to win, and Arsenal
Exactly.
are one of the biggest clubs in England. Like.
It's kept Arsene Wenger in a job. I mean,
Yeah. It is, yeah. I don't understand why they talk it down, or even the League Cup. Like Mourinho talks about the League Cup like it's the Champions League whenever he wins it.
Yeah, like it is silverware. Like it builds experience in winning these like they're not high pressure matches, but there's still pressure. There's still pressure.
Well,
to
the
actually
final
win.
is
Yeah,
the final's a big match.
and I'd say the semi-final when you had teams of the caliber we did last year is also high pressure.
Yeah, like that's probably one of the like highest quality semi-finals we've had in the FA Cup in years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they just completely imploded, really, in that semi-final. They were nowhere near Chelsea.
And I'd feel part of the reason is, you said earlier, everybody loves Spurs because, they're lovable losers.
Yeah.
I don't think they've fully shaken that off yet.
No.
They've still got it in their head,
There's still a bit of like that lads
at
at
Spurs.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
still have that reputation.
Exactly, yeah. And really, they need to get rid of that if they want. I feel that's part of why they lost to Arsenal, Pochettino was making excuses about the ref afterwards. That both the goals shouldn't have stood. There was a foul.
Like the first goal was offside. Like it's marginal. Those calls go against you. Like it was in the first half. You're supposed to bounce back from that.
Exactly. There was plenty of time left on the clock. That happens to every team. That's not like Northern Ireland against Switzerland level of injustice. That's the sort of stuff that happens in football.
Yeah.
Swings and roundabouts.
Exactly.
And like the second goal was fine from what I remember. Like,
but the thing with it, when did Arsenal score that goal? After
it was about
very
half an hour
early,
in,
Like
there
was still most of the
an
match.
hour.
Yeah, still most of the match left. They went and conceded another one. Did they look like scoring at any point during the?
No,
there was one save that Czech made late on, like 70 plus minutes. That would have made it 2-1. Maybe would have made it a match. But they didn't create anything with Harry Kane on the field, with Dele Alli on the field.
Yeah, both of them were like some of their poorest performances I've seen for a while.
And these are their leadership players. And if they're not fit, they're not fit. Fair enough. Or if they're not informed, they're not informed. But do something to change it then.
Yeah, why did it take so long for someone like Son to come on?
Yeah, especially if Dele Alli, I know you said it at the time that maybe like Dele Alli or Kane, if Kane was carrying an injury and Dele Alli is not performing, make the change earlier, make it at half time, change it all up. But they didn't do it, they just dragged it on. Like we were saying earlier talking about Tony Pulis, about how his effect on teams, it's psychological as well, that they get to the 40 points and they all think job done. Tony Pulis always thought that was the marker, that was what we intended for. a similar trend has been unfortunate in Pochettino's history, that every single team he's had has fallen away. That they haven't performed over the whole season. Now he was a disciple of Bielsa. Maybe it's a hangover from that hasn't been resolved yet. But his Espanyol teams always fell away at the end of the season, or had a big patch where they just didn't perform, and it hurt them at the end of the season. Happened at Southampton. Was he at two seasons? Southampton, both seasons.
Season and a half.
Season and a half. Both times near the end they performed very well. Near the end, they just kind of fell apart.
It was the same the year that they challenged Leicester for the title. Like, they totally collapsed, resulting in that humiliating 5-1 defeat against Newcastle.
It seemed to have improved a bit last season, but then the Chelsea semi-final, and then that was the end of the season, basically.
Even before the Chelsea semi-final, there was the one weekend Chelsea had drawn a game, and I can't remember, were they 4 points clear or 7 points clear, but Spurs had a game in hand, and they could really put pressure on it. I think Spurs were away to West Ham.
Yeah, it was West Ham.
And they went and lost it. They seem to just, they fall apart when the pressure's really on them.
Like Harry Kane, how many goals did Harry Kane score in the last 3 matches of the season?
Once the season was over, Leicester and some other team
became top scorer just off that alone, scoring back-to-back hat-tricks or something.
And especially when you have a manager like Pochettino, whose teams do fall away at the end of the season, that can't help mentally.
No.
Because, like, if you're a club with a history of bottling it, you've got a manager who's got a history of teams falling away at the end of the season when it really matters. And, I mean, without them winning something like the FA Cup, something that matters, without something
to cling on to at the end of the season.
Something to start a culture of success that can kind of change the mindset around the team. I can't see them flat out, winning the league without winning something else first. I can't see them winning the Champions League without something to build up to it.
Yeah. They've already lost more games this season than they lost last season, didn't they?
They've lost more at home, certainly. Like, they were beaten last season at home.
Yeah, so they've lost 4 matches, I think, so far this season.
And you can excuse some of that because they're playing at Wembley. And even last year they were playing in Wembley for the Champions League. And their Champions League last year was a disaster.
Maybe don't move stadium.
But in the end, though, like, that stadium is probably better for them long term.
Yeah, well, the point of it is to build your stadium so that you have more revenue streams so they can compete on a longer term basis against Arsenal, against the cash cows at Chelsea, at Man City. But the problem is they could end up with a Liverpool situation where, not to disparage Liverpool, but they've been trying to reach that level. They are a big team who do compete from time to time, but then have to fall back because they don't have the ability to compete on a long-term basis with their rivals. So Liverpool build to a point where Brendan Rodgers brings them to the cusp of the league title, or Rafa Benitez do it, or Gerard Houllier did it previously. And then they fall away for 3 or 4 or 5 seasons afterwards while they build again. And that could happen to Spurs now. That they'll get in the Champions League now, they're fine, they're comfortable, they're moving. A couple of years, they're doing well, they're not winning anything, and then you see all these players being sold off, and then the next 4 or 5 years will be them rebuilding.
Yeah, like, and we're seeing that at Dortmund and Monaco now as well.
Yeah, there is a cycle at Ajax previously happened in the 90s.
No, I'd agree with that, but I'd say the better comparison is Arsenal. Because Arsenal back 2006, wasn't it, they moved from Highbury to the Emirates? Yeah. And that made more sense in a long-term point of view. Mm-hmm. But I think that almost killed Arsenal, because Arsenal won the league in 2004, Chelsea won in 2005. Arsenal were still title contenders. But that, they couldn't spend the money Chelsea did, they couldn't spend the money United did. That meant United and Chelsea were the big teams at the end of the decade. And because of the expansion of the Premier League, Arsenal never caught back up. Yeah. Because Chelsea, United, they were bigger worldwide. City now too. They're now bigger worldwide. They've got a bigger fan base.
They have the state funding coming behind them. Yeah.
Exactly. And they've got, they've got their foreign fans. They've got more different revenue streams. Because Arsenal, in those terms, are the 4th biggest club in England. Yeah. And it's because they invested, they went for long term. Yeah. Sometimes as a football club that doesn't make sense. Yeah. And I'd wonder is this one of those times, are Tottenham now, because especially there's a big 6 now. There's not a big 4. Yeah. They're not guaranteed Champions League. Liverpool could easily beat them, to the Champions League. Arsenal
they could easily finish 6th.
Exactly. Yeah. And if they finish 6th, even when the new stadium comes in, sure, it makes them more money. It does, but stadiums aren't the biggest part of a team's money anymore.
Yeah, that
not by a long shot.
No longer what teams rely on.
Yeah. Arsenal, I think, make the 2nd most per match day I think it's them and Manchester United make the most money.
Do they not make more than Man United?
Oh,
now?
maybe they do make more because the tickets are more expensive.
So much more expensive.
But that's like, it doesn't matter when the Premier League give you £1 billion.
Yeah, Man United are still outspending Arsenal by a vast amount.
And maybe you're right that like Arsenal made it. They were champions 2004 unbeaten. 2005 finished second, runners up to Chelsea, and nearly could have done it. They kind of gotten a fist fight with Manchester United that season that cost them their league. And then 2006 got to Champions League final. They haven't reached those heights yet. They almost won the league in 2008. They finished second a few years ago. That's it.
Yeah, like other than the FA Cup, they haven't had much success.
Yeah, that's maybe it's down. It is down entirely because Arsenal completely sold off that 2004 team and rebuilt from scratch with youth players the way Spurs are now.
Yeah, we're even seeing this parallels that Tottenham are selling their best players to Man City.
Yeah.
Like it's that close a parallel.
Yeah. Maybe they're too close to it to actually see the whole picture.
Yeah, someday they'll just wake up and realise that they were always meant to be together.
They're one club that nobody knew, the Arsenal Hotspur.
What a glorious team that would be.
It would.
Any more thoughts on Tottenham in their process?
They're not going to win the league. A top four finish, it's obviously a top four finish is very much in the remit, but it's so tight there at the moment, as we said earlier.
There's a bunching up now.
4 points between the second and seventh.
Yeah.
We're in November.
You
it's
do
not
expect
early.
Burnley to fall off, but still, like sixth.
Yeah.
They are level on points with fifth and sixth. That's
with Arsenal and Liverpool.
Yeah, like it's so close. Like any kind of slip up and you could be completely left behind.
Yeah. Like it's not out of the realm of possibility that we have one of the so-called top six finish where Chelsea did the season before last. Where did Chelsea finish? 8th or 10th?
10th, I think.
Yeah, easily could happen. Just a bad run of games, and it's so tight that you fall down.
Yeah, and especially Tottenham, because they don't have the money. Like we were saying earlier, they're there because they like the manager. They're buying into his process. They're buying into the system. They obviously like the culture at the club, and I mean that's definitely a plus for them. But if they finish sixth, if they lose to Liverpool and Arsenal, the players have to start wondering. I'm coming into my prime now. I'm one of the best players, like Christian Eriksen. I'm one of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
Do I really want to spend it at Tottenham?
Yeah, and like the same could be said for Pochettino as well. Like I wonder, like he's talked about being there for 20 years, but I'm very skeptical of that. Like you don't see that in the modern day anymore.
No, they're definitely. There's so many ways it could unravel for Spurs.
Yeah. Christian Eriksen will not be at Spurs this time next year. I cannot. see
it seems like he's been linked heavily with Barcelona. Like he could be. Easily but
I think he would fit perfectly into the Real Madrid team as well, playing the Luka Modric role. He's almost the exact same player as Luka Modric.
Yeah, I think any team in the world would take him.
Even someone like Juventus or Bayern could come in for
they
him.
would suit him down to the ground. A team that would pay him probably at least double. I think the highest. What's the highest paid player at Spurs is £58,000.
Is that hot?
I think it is.
I think
Kane and Lloris are on 100.
Oh, they're on 100. Okay, so previously it was a Kyle Walker that was on 58.
Yeah. I think
Danny
contracts
Rose.
were redone.
Yeah, because they have a structure. They have a structure in place. Like I remember, this wasn't even 6 years ago. Nicholas Bentner changed his number to 52 because apparently he was on £52,000 at Arsenal.
Sure.
Nicholas Bentner as a reserve.
Yeah.
Nicholas Bentner.
Sure. Ashley Cole left Arsenal back in 2007, wasn't it?
2006.
2006. That's 11 years ago. He was on 60 grand a week, or they were offering him 60 grand a week, and he wasn't happy with that.
He said it was disgracing to crash his car.
Yeah, that's 10 years ago now, and the wages have only gone up. They've tripled.
Yeah, and you can imagine almost if there's only 2 players on 100 grand.
Yeah,
I mean,
what about the rest of them? Like they must, if they see, Mesut Ozil and Alexis Sanchez across the road, they're a mile apart. They probably know each other.
Yeah,
they're turning down contracts in excess of £240,000 a week.
Yeah.
And they're performing better than these Arsenal players.
Yeah, like Arsenal did go through that as well. Like a part of that is just the new stadium. Like
No, but it's a strict finance, and it's not to be. We don't, because I'm in favour of football business prudence, financial prudence in the place. Don't spend more than you make. But and maybe it's a reality for Spurs that they can't hold on to these players when they're at their peaks and they must sell them on. But then sell them on and get the new ones in quicker. The way Dortmund are doing it now and the way Monaco are doing it when they're buying at 18, 19, 20 and saying you're going to, like the player from Man City whose name escapes me that they bought and gave the number 7 shirt to. Dortmund did.
Oh yeah, Jadon Sancho.
Yeah,
exactly. they have to do that and trust into youth. And, Dortmund will finish in Champions League places in Germany this year.
Yeah, it's more comfortable there in Bundesliga. Like, there's only
There's
many...
competition, though.
There is. Like,
No.
it's not a given, but, like, it is so likely that they will.
Well, I think
it's likely because unless Peter Bosz screws it up, because they aren't doing very well at the moment, they could switch manager. Pochettino could go there. Pochettino could stay in Dortmund for 20 years.
Yeah. No, I do feel we're being a little harsh on Spurs, though, because, I mean, we've been focusing on the flaws. They're still, a very good team.
Yeah, like, we're going to talk about the Champions League now in a minute. Like, they are going to qualify top of their group, and that was the group of death that everyone had brought up beforehand.
Yeah, and I think, without looking into their depth, they don't have great depth, but their first 11, it's a match for any first 11 in the league,
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. At least, everyone except Man City, I think.
Yeah,
it
I'd
would be
agree.
interesting to see their match, because Tottenham were the team to stop Man City last year.
Yeah, that was the difference.
Tottenham stopped Chelsea as well. I know I was, saying that they don't have a winner's mentality or a successful mentality, but they were the team that stopped Chelsea on their 13-game run.
Yeah.
They can show up in these big games. They just need to get some consistency with it.
Yeah, and like they did, we were saying like they've lost to Arsenal, they've lost to Man United, and they lost to Chelsea. But they did beat Liverpool as well, who were supposed to be the best team for these kind of big matches.
Yeah.
So that will leave us for our topic of the show. We will preview the Champions League after this. Speaking of Spurs, as we just said, they could top the group. They play Dortmund this week away from home. And Dortmund, it is just going from bad to worse for them. They've lost at the weekend, and now it seems like they're about to crash out of the Champions League at the group stages.
Yeah, they're Dortmund. We said before, this is the group of death, that at the beginning I would say most people would have picked Dortmund and Real Madrid to go through out of this group. Maybe the odd one might pick Spurs to finish second, but now Spurs are ahead in this group. Win will give them...
I think even a point is good enough for Spurs.
To get the...
Yeah, because of the way the group falls.
This is it, to win the group and then be in the last 16, and they could be clear of half the worst teams to play in Europe and get a good path to the quarterfinals. That is beyond their wildest expectations, I'd say, at the beginning.
Especially considering how last season went, as we mentioned earlier. It was a total disaster.
And then Dortmund are just... We said Peter Bosz's job might be at risk.
Dortmund,
they started the season so well.
They did. They were 20 points after the first 8 games or something.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. But I mean, I actually watched the Stuttgart game because I was bored and there's nothing else on TV. Yeah. But the first goal, they conceded after 5 minutes or something. And the goal was ridiculous. Mark Bartra, I think, and Berkey, the goalkeeper. It was complete miscommunication. There was no pressure,
and that's happened before.
It has. It's a trend.
Champions League against Apoel.
It's a trend. Teams. Yeah, I mean, the keeper was coming out. The defender just had to play a back pass to him. Instead, he's coming out further than the defender expected him to. He hits the pass too hard. It bounces off the keeper's feet, and forward as an open goal.
And they're two of the most consistent performers this season. Berkey's probably been their best player.
Yeah.
Like, he kept a minute against Apoel at times.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel sorry for Peter Bosz because he can't control that. You can do all the coaching drills, you can do all the training. You can't stop your player making a silly mistake like that, and the several others that have happened this season. But at the same time, there's obviously something gone wrong there.
Yeah, because they weren't they hated the manager. They hated
Thomas Tuchel.
Thomas Tuchel this time last year, and everyone knew he was a dead man walking. And they didn't, play this badly last year.
Yeah, so they were doing much better last season.
So there is something up at the team, with the team at the moment. And if they're not careful, they could, as we just said, they have very good young players. And they have a commitment to these young players. But if they don't start pulling the finger out, they could be in serious trouble for reaching the top 4 in Germany.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how seriously they do treat the Europa League.
If they even qualify for it, then there's no guarantee yet.
Yeah, that's true as well.
Could still pass them. No, I feel they have to prioritise the league, really, because that's their big attraction for young players, that they can get Champions League experience. But they have been the problem, even with their defensive mistakes. The bigger problem is going forward. They're not doing anything going forward. The goal they scored against Stuttgart was a penalty that was saved, and the rebound had to be scored. Andre Schürrle is playing up front for them most of the time because Aubameyang's been dropped for
Yeah,
disciplinary
Aubameyang
issues.
disciplinary
He's leaving.
issues,
Yeah, he's someone who's leaving that club.
He's mentally out. Like
Yeah,
he's
gone.
already checked out.
Yeah.
But like they've Schürrle who cost them £30 million or something.
Yeah, like that's a lot for someone like Andre Schürrle.
yeah.
He was a utility attacker. Like.
It's a lot for a club like Dortmund, and I mean he hasn't performed there. I mean he left Chelsea because, or for whatever reason, there was enough money and he wasn't happy with the
He
minutes.
wanted more minutes.
But he was playing better back then at Chelsea than he has since he's moved back. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. Dortmund going forward, really, Pulis seems to be, you know,
they're kind of
These people are
the
kids.
bright
though.
spark. Yeah.
They're all kids,
Yeah.
except for Schürrle. But the
Yeah.
rest of them are kids.
No, they do, and you'd expect Schürrle should be bringing that bit of leadership or that bit of composure.
It's World
that-
Cup winner, like.
Exactly.
like they like the fact that they are giving someone like Jadon Sancho the number 7 jersey. Like there's a pressure behind one of the bigger jerseys at the club as well.
Yeah, and when you have only the young players to uphold that pressure,
They can collapse and
Exactly.
they can be crushed by it.
exactly.
And like Dortmund have collapsed before. We saw it under Jurgen Klopp as well. Like
Yeah.
they were last at Christmas. Like
Yeah. Still got Europa League football.
yeah, that was an incredible second half of
Yeah.
the season. Was all that would save them, and it was only Europa League in the end. Like
Yeah.
and they have they did suffer from it.
Yeah, they did. They certainly did.
But even then, like in that group, Real Madrid second, like that'll be kind of a turn up for the books for the draw whenever that takes
It's going to
place.
screw up a lot of teams in the draw.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure Juventus are also going to be second in the draw. So Juventus, Real Madrid,
I think
maybe Bayern Munich.
yeah,
Chelsea could be second as well.
Yeah.
I think with the standings of it, because you can't draw a team from your own country.
Yeah.
Any English team who finishes second is in a world of trouble because there's 4 English teams topping the group. I think Chelsea have something like a 50% chance to draw Barcelona if it goes as it is now,
Yeah.
and 25% to draw PSG.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to finish, like you barely want to finish first in the group with some of the teams coming second.
Yeah, like it is. Like we saw great Champions League groups or last 16 last year. Like we could be in for another trip
Yeah.
like that this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, and I think they changed the seeding system for how the groups work, so that the first seed is always the team who is the champion of the country,
Yeah,
the top
they
8 countries.
did that a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah, and that's been great for the competition.
Yeah, I
really.
think it's really helped the group stages.
Yeah, because it's made it from, most groups would be an easy 1-2 and you'd have a third competitive.
Yeah.
But like now we're getting 3 teams and you look at it and you really don't know who's going to go through. Like Atletico, Roma and Chelsea is another group that's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that is a really big group, and like there's some big games coming up this week. Like Chelsea are away to Karabakh, so like you'd expect 3 points there that should secure their qualification.
The snow has started though.
Yeah.
Oh, has it?
Yeah, and there's no guarantee either.
Like Atletico
couldn't
yeah.
do it, yeah.
But like Atletico host Roma this week, and like if Roma can win that would most likely secure top of the group, and
They can avoid defeat even. That's
Yeah.
gone.
Atletico will
benefits
be
everyone.
gone. Like they've been in between Atletico and Dortmund, they've been in the quarterfinals each of the last 5 years. Like they've been 3 of the last finals between the two of them. Like they're huge teams to just all of a sudden not be in the last 16. Like the last 16 could be really fresh this year.
Yeah.
It does seem like we're getting a bit of a shift. Champions League generally does go in sort of cycles.
Yeah.
Like we had the English teams, and then we had the Spanish teams, and Bayern and
Yeah,
Juve.
even the Italians before that.
Yeah, and now the Italians are coming back again now. Napoli are looking...
Napoli are out.
Yeah, Napoli,
Right.
Napoli could be out of the group stage.
Bad example.
But
I was
Juventus
thinking
are
of Syria.
getting the finals, and they're probably still going to easily get through to the knockout stages.
Yeah.
And like you think come next year that they will be back even bigger, because like Inter Milan aren't in Europe this year, but they will most certainly qualify. Like Roma have been very good this season, and they seem like they're only getting better.
Yeah.
You would think Napoli would be in a better position next year.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll have a Scudetto behind them,
There's also...
so they can focus more on the Champions League.
Yeah, but there's also the other clubs, like they've got some strength in depth now. It's not just the top 2, it's the top 6. It's like England. I mean, Sampdoria beat Juve at the weekend.
Yeah,
and
another defeat for Juve.
Another defeat for
Allegri
Juve.
could be under a lot of trouble or under a lot of pressure rather.
I think it's a bit early to be saying that because, I mean, they're still only 2 points behind.
Yeah, and
They're 4
They're
behind
still
Napoli.
rebuilt. He's
4.
rebuilt. Allegri has a lot of capital at Juventus at the moment because he's rebuilt the team 4 years in a row. He's lost big players every single year for the last 4 years, and has come back every year and won the league and got to 2 Champions League finals along the way. This year he lost his best defender, and the other, like he's probably by the end of the season is going to lose at least 2 of his famous two more of that famous back three and goalkeeper, because Buffon is likely to retire at the end of the season.
Yeah, he said
And
he will unless they win the Champions League.
Barzaghi is 37 at the end of the
Yeah.
season, so he's not, even if he isn't retired, he's not going to be in the starting
Yeah, he's
lineup
going to
next
be
year.
rebuilding again next summer if he
So
stays.
I don't think there's anyone better. There's no one with better tools than Allegri to do that. And I think they'll get into the Champions League knockout stages and probably get knocked out by a bigger team like they did.
Yeah,
Like
it
they have done
happened-
every year for the last
Yeah,
year.
like they got defeated by Bayern Munich a few years ago as
Yeah.
well under Pep.
Yeah.
Like they might be one of the better, bigger teams to get just because they are in such poor form at the moment. The other, like they play Barcelona this week. Like you would think Barcelona will secure top.
Yeah, the first match was terrible. So
Yeah, it
a
was
draw
it's
would suit
3-0
both sides.
at
They're both through.
Yeah. Like Juventus still have to worry about Sporting. I think I can't remember how the group stands, but like
There's
Sporting is
3
still,
points, I think.
There's still a chance there.
Yeah.
Like if Sporting, if Juventus lose, like Sporting have like there's a door open for them to come in, and like if Juve don't get out of the group stage, that'd be pretty poor from them.
It's happened before under Conte.
Yeah.
Conte's never done well
Yeah.
in Europe,
Yeah.
which is why Chelsea are under
Yeah.
risk.
Yeah, and then just closing out, like Liverpool and United should secure qualification.
Yeah. Liverpool topped the group. They're playing Sevilla away, but they should have beaten Sevilla the first time round.
Yeah.
You expect even if they don't get the result this week, they'll
Like
get it
Sevilla
next
lost
week.
5-1 to Spartak Moscow. Like they're
Yeah.
not, they're not they're not the side that won 3 Europa Leagues in a row.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no, and even in Spain, they're not doing as well.
Yeah.
Like last year, they were putting serious pressure on Barca and Real. This year,
Yeah.
they've fallen away again.
They
a
don't
bit.
have Simone Zaza.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then United just need a point against Basel to top
Yeah.
the group because of the way that group
They already
is
have
falling.
12. United
Yeah.
already have 12 points.
Yeah.
Like they're-
Yeah.
They will get a point, even if they don't get.
Highly
if they lose their last 2
unlikely-
matches, they'll probably still win the game.
Yeah, highly unlikely that they don't qualify as well.
And Man City are through as well. Then
Yeah.
yeah.
That will do us for this week. I think we've gone through everything that we needed to go through. Thank you for listening, and please do get in touch. Email us at thetfpod@gmail.com if you have any thoughts on what we discussed or any topic of the show ideas. You can follow us individually on Twitter. I'm at Cheesy Heartpun, and you're at Combon27. Tyus, you're not on Twitter.
I'm not yet. no.
You need to get on that at some point. Like it's great. And
Abuse for everyone.
yeah. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review on whatever platform you choose. That just leaves me to say thank you to Andrew and Matthias,
Thank you, Dan.
Cheers.
and goodbye from me.